Good evening, folks. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for pivoting with us. I am Kelly Cassidy. I am homesick. I didn't make it to session, so I wasn't expecting to be able to be here at all, even when we were together or planning to be together, because I would have been on the road on the way home. So I was sick this week for session, so I'm able to at least pop in and say hi and thank the folks from the Greater Chicago Food Depository for being a resource for our constituents. Um, I was sharing with the team that in conversations this week with colleagues around the country, I'm on a lot of threads with progressive legislators around the country, mostly talking about Minnesota, quite frankly, but talking about this. I shared what we were doing here, what resources had been mustered from the community, from government, what our office had done in terms of setting up specialized communication with every constituent who's ever contacted us on this topic. And you would have thought that I taught them how to invent the airplane because nobody had thought to figure out how many people had reached out to them about SNAP in the past. So hopefully that will lead to greater communication with others in need of information. And then Rally, with that, do we just toss it to Molly?
Well, I just want to, thank for everybody for coming
Yep.
and let you know through the presentation. Molly is here from the Greater Chicago Food Depository. Thank you so much, Molly. But if you have any questions, just put them in the chat. The presentation only lasts about 30 minutes, and then the rest of the time will be given to questions and answers. So any of those questions we will answer afterwards. We just want to get kind of through the presentation. But with that, Molly, please, thank you.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Molly. I am the Senior Manager of Advocacy at the Greater Chicago Food Depository. As mentioned, I am just going to quickly talk a bit about the changes to SNAP, kind of what happened with the change in the law that was passed over the last summer, what that means for you all and for us as Chicagoans, Illinoisans moving forward, and what we can do to protect your own SNAP benefits, to protect your neighbor's SNAP benefits, and to really rally around this issue. I am going to share my screen. Perfect. Okay, can everybody see that?
Looks good.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, so as mentioned, I'm here representing the Greater Chicago Food Depository. The mission at the Greater Chicago Food Depository truly is that we believe food is a basic human right, and we connect our neighbors with healthy food and address solutions that, stop hunger in its tracks, including systemic racism, systemic inequality, structural racism, and poverty. That's just really important to the food depository, and that's why they've invested so heavily in a policy team. The Greater Chicago Food Depository is one of 7 food banks in the state of Illinois that is a member of Feeding America, which is the kind of umbrella organization that all food banks, I should say the majority of food banks in America kind of level up to. A food bank is the service that provides food to the food pantries all around. So, we're up on the north side. You might be familiar with a food pantry called like Care for Real, some of Care for Friends, some of those places. Yeah, you might be familiar with them. Those are food pantries. The food bank is what is kind of providing the food and the services for those pantries. So every county in the state of Illinois is covered by a food bank in their service area. I like to ground us to start this conversation with an understanding kind of where we are currently at in terms of the state of hunger in Cook County, Chicagoland area. The local demand for food assistance and the rates of food insecurity based on our own measurements have gone up by about 60% in the last 6 years. So you can see here the comparison from FY19, 2019 to FY 2025, and the change that we've experienced just as our food bank in the increase in households and the distribution in the number of millions of pounds of food that we are distributing each year. This is something that I think is really important because there is a common misconception that the there was a massive spike of hunger during the pandemic, which, did happen. There was a spike of hunger during the pandemic, but that it's kind of like gone down since then. But the reality is that hunger has remained at an extremely elevated level since the pandemic. It never went down. And these are numbers that we are experiencing before any of these SNAP cuts happen, right? Like this is in the universe of everything existing as it currently exists, right? And these are the numbers we're still seeing at the food bank. To ground us also in just a sense of scale of what's happening here in our city, 1 in 5 Chicago households is experiencing food insecurity, and that number goes up to 1 in 4 when you're talking about households with children. This is really important, I think, just for all of us to understand before we're even talking about what happened with SNAP, because that is a truly just unacceptable number of people who are experiencing hunger in our country, in our city. We live in the, wealthiest country on the planet at the wealthiest time in human history, and we still have 1 in 5 people and 1 in 4, households with children experiencing hunger in the city of Chicago. And again, this is a number that this is what we are seeing before any changes to the social safety net program is in effect. So this is as it currently stands. So with that kind of hopefully, mutual understanding of where we're currently at in terms of the work the Food Depository is doing, the state of hunger in Illinois and Chicago, I'm going to dive into the SNAP program itself and the changes that were passed into law and what that means for all of us and ways that we can continue to, advocate and make an impact and save our own benefits and the benefits of our neighbors. So first and foremost, SNAP is, it's hard to overstate how important SNAP is in the universe of anti-hunger programs and anti-hunger work in America. So this is a statistic I always like to share, that for every one meal that a food bank is able to provide, and that's not just our food bank, that's all food banks across the entire country, SNAP is providing 9. So even if any amount of reduction, I should say, in SNAP, there's no world in which food banks are then suddenly able to provide 9 times the amount of food and services to people that we are currently doing. You saw already that we're doing 60% more than we were doing 6 years ago, and that's with SNAP existing as it, has been for 60 years. So it's just really important to understand the scale that SNAP is able to impact people's lives and how it's different from what the emergency food system can do. In the entire United States, about 43 million people are using SNAP. In Illinois, it's about 1 million households or 2 million people. It's also really important to recognize that something people don't always think of is SNAP is an economic program on top of it being like a food assistance program. So it is estimated, and this is a USDA funded study from, I think, 2018. So it's not, a think tank that created this study. It was estimated in a USDA study that every dollar spent on SNAP from the federal government generates more than $1.50 in local economic activity, which benefits local stores and farmers. If you really think about it, that has to do with the fact that the benefits are coming from the federal government onto a card that somebody can then go spend at their local store. So that local store then has more money to be able to hire more people, to be able to, maybe if it's not a chain store, like a more local store, they're able to purchase more local food. There's a double up bucks feature at farmers markets. So you're able to support more local farms and local farmers. SNAP really is a whole economic driver and an economic engine in of itself that I think in the very important conversation we all have of the way that it is keeping people fed, the conversation of the way that it impacts the economy and it impacts, lives beyond those who are just purchasing food using the benefits themselves. It kind of has a ripple effect, right? There are almost 14,000 SNAP recipients in the 14th State House District as of September 2025. I don't have the numbers right off the top of my head in terms of how that compares to some districts, but just kind of good to ground that the issue of hunger and food insecurity in this country, in the state, in the city, impacts all of us. Whether it's you directly, your neighbors, your community, there's somebody that's getting impacted by this. So with that being said, what happened to SNAP, right? Why are we talking about it right now? Over the summer, specifically on July 4th, the president signed a bill into law that they have titled the One Big Beautiful Bill. It's a terrible name. And it includes over $1 trillion in cuts to SNAP and Medicaid in the combination of the two. That signifies the largest cuts to those two programs in program history and is, of course, removing food access and healthcare from millions of people. I have hopefully made the case already, the fact that for every one meal that a food bank is providing, SNAP is providing 9. So on the food bank level, we are expecting the need for food assistance to just absolutely skyrocket. And again, that loss of SNAP benefits will impact local economies. There's going to be less money circulating at local stores, less money spent, to create more jobs, less food produced. You see the kind of cyclical nature of what happens when you remove this amount of money from the economy. It's not on the slide, but for every year, Illinois, through the 2 million people who are receiving SNAP benefits, receives about $4 billion in SNAP benefits. And when you take that kind of economic driver multiplication piece into it, that's about $5 billion in economic generation happening in our state. That's going to potentially get wiped, right? So that's a really big deal. How specifically does this bill impact SNAP and SNAP recipients? There are multiple ways in which this bill is aiming to cut SNAP. These 3 that I have on the slide are kind of the major ways and what I'm going to be diving into today. So the first thing is that it's going to increase the costs that the state must cover to administer the program. It will remove SNAP benefits from many legally present immigrants, and it will also expand work requirements. That expansion of work requirements, I will get into a little bit more in depth in this presentation and share some resources, and we'll also share links to those resources with Representative Cassidy's team afterwards. So the first change that I like to highlight, because it's thornier, it's less tangible maybe than some of the other changes, but has the potential of having the largest impact. And that reason is this is an extremely expensive change to SNAP. So right now, historically, has always been the case that SNAP benefits, the money itself that's getting spent on food, has been 100% federally funded since the creation of the SNAP program. Beginning in October of 2027, states will be required to cover a significant portion of those SNAP benefits. As the law currently stands, and there's some specifics as to how these numbers came up, how Illinois is, how they chose the numbers that states are going to have to pay, that I can get into should there be any questions. But the most important thing to know is that this new rule will require Illinois to pay up to $800 million per year to keep SNAP available for those who need it. That is a combination of Illinois being required to pay 15% of the cost of benefits, which again is $4 billion a year. So that's about $700 million, plus a change in how much states need to pay to administer the program, which will add an extra $100 million to that bill. So right now, we are staring down the barrel of $800 million per year just to keep SNAP exactly as it is. So that is not an increase in benefits. That's not an increase in eligibility. That's not a change in rules for folks who are on it. That is just to keep the program running. And the reason that this has the potential to be the biggest impact to the program is that SNAP is what is called an entitlement program, which means that legally, anybody who is income qualified for the program must receive the benefits. So there's because of that law, if Illinois cannot pay the full match that has been newly created by this new law, and then therefore we don't have enough money to cover people who might be income qualified for the program, we are out of compliance, and therefore the entire SNAP program has to shut down in Illinois. So this is unfortunately an all or nothing situation. It's either we pay $800 million, potentially up to $800 million in October 2027, or we lose SNAP. That is obviously extremely concerning. It's something that I know, I appreciate so much, of course, Representative Cassidy having us here to talk about this issue. And I know, we've talked about with many members of the General Assembly, as well as the governor's team, and just trying to make sure people understand what's at stake here. It's, all or nothing, pay a bill or lose SNAP for everybody. So obviously that has the biggest potential impact from this bill. The second piece that is going to have the most immediate consequences for folks on this call and neighbors and community members is an expansion of work requirements. So work requirements, and we could talk for the rest of the hour about how work requirements are both ineffective and deeply racist and only meant to keep people from food that they are, entitled to as a human being, and punish people by keeping food away from them. We could talk about that forever. The point really is that this law is expanding work requirements. So it is currently estimated that about 450,000 people in Illinois could be at risk or could have been at risk of losing those benefits due to the new work reporting requirements. Thanks to some administrative advocacy, the Food Depository has been hard at work with the Illinois Department of Human Services. The Illinois Department of Human Services, absolutely to their credit, is a group of people who care about mitigating harm as much as possible. We've found some ways to roll these out as leniently as allowed by the law, right? And IDHS has already gone through and automatically been able to exempt about 200-ish thousand of those 450,000 people who are going to need to start reporting work requirement paperwork. I will get into what exemptions are in just a second, but that's really great. So right now, between that and the work that the Food Depository and other food advocates are doing across the state, trying to encourage people to submit work exemptions to not have to submit work requirement paperwork moving forward, we've gotten that number down from 450,000 to about 180,000 right now, which of course is a huge win, but is also still a lot of work to do, right? There's still almost 200,000 people out there who maybe don't know that this is coming. And these rules go into effect starting February 1st, which is, as we know, time-wise, very soon. Doesn't mean that if February 1st comes by and somebody who could be exempt from work requirements has not done their exemption yet, that they're, SOL, always still time for them to submit that exemption. But I will get into that in just a minute. But that is kind of how another big major immediate impact from this law that is potentially, going to remove benefits from hundreds of thousands of people in our state. This is an example of some of the ways people can be exempt from a work requirement, according to the Department of Human Services. I say some because it's non-exhaustive, right? I will there are links in this presentation for you to find the website, more officially. This is just a screenshot. And I will send those links as well to the representative's office so that she can share it with the rest of everybody on this call. But I just wanted to give you a bird's eye view, a snapshot of what could exempt a person from having to submit those work requirements. The last change that is going to severely impact people living in Illinois and, across the country, but we're talking specifically numbers of Illinois, is a change to immigrant eligibility for SNAP. So already, or I should say, as of April of 2026, is when these changes are going to happen. So this is not immediate, but relatively soon that these changes are going to start happening. You can see from this chart that there was already, there was already some kind of specific groups. You had to be kind of in a specific group of immigrant to be eligible for SNAP in the first place in this country. There was already, as we know, many hoops that people had to jump through to be able to be eligible for this program. To remove the eligibility from some of these folks is, again, we know, just another attack on our immigrant neighbors, immigrant rights, and going after just extremely vulnerable population in our country and our state. We are expecting this will impact about 16,000 lawfully present immigrants, this change to SNAP eligibility. It's not going to be immediate, so the change will start as early as April 1st, but it's whenever that person is up for a redetermination of their benefits is when they would discover that they're no longer eligible. I will pause there. I will be sharing some kind of, advocacy and resources, but I want to pause for questions about the actual changes themselves. I saw some chat.
Yeah, I see one in the chat, and then we can go to folks if they want to raise their hands, use the raise hand function. So maybe let's unshare the screen for the moment, although you say you might want to share things that way too.
Yeah,
well,
I'll share it again.
We can pop in and out. Okay. Yeah. The first question was, thanks for hosting this. I'm a social worker at a local school. Would it be safe to say that none of our families are impacted by these changing requirements, given that they all have children under the age of 14? Correct. Now, that wouldn't apply if they had been eligible under one of those newly ineligible immigrant statuses, right?
Yes, correct. So if it is a mixed status household or somebody who's under an immigrant household that was eligible and is no longer eligible, the answer might be different. But more generally, anybody who has even one dependent under their care that's on the age 14 and under is still exempt from the work requirements. Yeah.
So I would think, and this is Tara asking this, Tara, that would be a good way to communicate to your families, because they're probably still scared.
Yes.
That's the reality. This is all so convoluted and hard to absorb. We've been reading it every day for months now, and I still get myself caught in loops.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I think that folks would still want to hear that. Adrian asks, where did you say we could find the list of exempted groups from the new work requirements?
Yep, totally. So I have towards the end of the deck a QR code to the official IDHS screener website. I will give the caveat that even on their website, it's not the list of exemptions is not exhaustive. They don't want people to kind of decide it's not worth it to screen, But I'll be sharing that towards the end of this slide, as well as I can send the links back to your office, Representative Cassidy. Yeah,
that's good. And I'm going to reach back to that social worker question. Mm-hmm. It would be probably smart to say while it's likely that because everybody has kids on, has the appropriate age kids in their household, it still might be useful to go through the screener.
Yeah, it might be, especially if there's a kid, if their youngest kid is, 13, 14, kind of reaching that age and about to be non-exempt, might as well go through the screener now, kind of get that paperwork in and hopefully set it and forget it and be able to just not have to worry then about going through the hoops later. Yeah.
That makes sense. Makes sense. All right. I don't see anything else in the chat.
Okay. Fantastic. Well, once again, should anything other questions come up, I will happy to pause, happy to answer questions. Okay, so I gave a lot of information. As you mentioned, Representative Cassidy, sometimes that information can be hard to absorb. So we've started recently trying to give kind of three main talking points to be able to talk about what you just learned, sum it up in three, hopefully easier to digest nuggets. Top three things to remember from my perspective, from our perspective on the food depository. First, SNAP, which is the country's most important anti-hunger tool, was cut by $200 billion by the One Big Beautiful Bill. Second, changes to work requirements and immigrant eligibility are happening now, which put hundreds of thousands of people at risk of losing their benefits. And three, those new rules from this law require states to pay for a portion of the state SNAP benefits, which could put Illinois on the hook for up to $800 million per year due to this change. So kind of the three big messages there. So I know that that's heavy. That's a lot, right? And speaking for myself, I always like to ask, well, great, that's a lot of information, but what can we do, right? What comes next? And thankfully, that is also something that we are here to help answer and to rally people around. So I like to highlight, because people have fantastic questions about this, right? We've made it clear, I hope, that this was a federal change, right? This is not, also, I should just mention, this is not anything any legislator who has anything to do, touches Cook County voted for. But this is still a change that passed into law, right? It's a federal change. That doesn't mean that the state of Illinois now, can't do it. Like the state of Illinois now is staring down, like, what do we do about it, right? And so we have to ask ourselves the question of like advocacy on different levels. What can we do about what just happened? So on the federal side, of course, well, I should say strategically, politically, in the short term, something that national anti-hunger advocates, SNAP advocates have been talking about is creating some sort of short-term strategy to try and delay that state cost share piece, right? That $800 million bill that's coming in October of 2027 to the state of Illinois. Literally no states want this. And so we think there might be some political, momentum maybe that we can, we as a group of advocates can create to delay that cost share until hopefully longer term, we're able to create the momentum to get some friendlier people into Congress that would reverse the cut before it happens, right? That's ideal, right? Well, I mean, ideal is this never happened in the first place, but that's ideal for where we're at right now. We also, though, in recognizing that as the long-term kind of federal advocacy strategy, also have to recognize the current reality that we are experiencing, which is this is law, right? So in 2026, on the state side, the Food Depository is exploring options to expand emergency assistance for populations at risk of benefit loss. 2027, of course, our advocacy is really about what are we going to do to make sure SNAP doesn't disappear entirely, right? And then on the local community side, this is a big piece of what we're doing here today too, which is mitigating harm by keeping as many people as possible enrolled in the program. We're trying to gather and disseminate stories about the impact, making people make those connections to understand the way that SNAP impacts everybody's everyday life and the way that this law has impacted SNAP, right? Okay, so getting involved. I hope that some of those advocacy strategies and ideas are exciting to you. If so, there's some great ways to get involved. So obviously I am representing the Food Depository. I am the senior manager of advocacy, so I feel a particular type of way about our advocacy strategies. We have a really active advocacy action center that you can sign up using this QR code link right here. We send periodic action alerts as relevant to encourage with pre-written email templates and phone call templates that you can use to really easily contact your legislators. We have monthly legislative updates that, our newsletter that will give you updates about, what's going on with SNAP, what's going on with other food access programs that we're keeping track of on the federal, state, and local level. And we also do learning webinars. We have one coming up next week that'll be basically what you all just saw, just, the explanation of what happened with SNAP, and then we're going to announce our 2026 policy agenda there too. So should you be interested in doing that, this is a great opportunity to kind of sign on to that Action Center. The other big piece that I want to highlight here is our community outreach toolkit on the SNAP changes. So this, I think, very nice looking toolkit was created with our marketing team, and the QR code is right here in the kind of center of the page. It's available. All resources in this toolkit are available in both English and Spanish. And from here, you will see sample social media graphics and language you can use, newsletter blurbs you can use, emails you can send, flyers you can print and, post around the neighborhood, bring it to, I will say the food depository is in the process of printing and shipping those flyers to all of our food pantries. So, like the Care for Reals and all of those. But additionally, like if they don't have them yet, you can bring them there too. You can post them to the telephone poles. Whoever you think needs this information, hopefully this toolkit has some way that you can communicate this out, both for yourself and for your loved ones, your neighbors, your community. And then I'm going to share some resources right here about specifically if you yourself are using SNAP or if you know people in your life who are using SNAP. You can scan right here for our page that we've collected a lot of the resources for saving your SNAP benefits, including links to report changes to your income or household, determine if you need to meet the new work requirements, and as well as a link to the toolkit there. And then and again, I will send these links as well to Representative Cassidy's office so that you can click them if QR codes are not your jam. I totally get it. So this is very specifically, if you yourself are using SNAP, here's links to the work requirements screener, to your Manage My Case portal, and to directly call the Illinois Department of Human Services should you have any, case-specific questions that you want to talk about. This slide is a little outdated. It says anybody needs to submit by February 1st. We're updating that language because it makes it sound like if you don't submit by February 1st, you're out of luck, which is not true. You can still submit for exemptions after February 1st. So, but that's all I've got on my end. So I will stop sharing my screen. Thank you all so much for having me. I'm happy to answer any questions I can.
Yep, we've got a follow-up. Can you please clarify what kind of access mixed status families may have to SNAP, such as the children are documented while the parents do not have documents?
Yep. So I realized that I said mixed status households, and as I said that, the changes to mixed status households has actually not changed. So undocumented immigrants have never been eligible for SNAP. So any SNAP benefits going to a mixed status household family is for the the children that are eligible for the program and not the parents necessarily. The caveat being like there might be some specific cases where the child is, like 18 and now the work requirements are in, so like there might be some specific cases where the child is going to have to get like screened for an exemption. But a 14-year-old child doesn't need to get screened for an exemption. It's only if their caretaker was using that child's age to be exempt, but the 14-year-old themselves is exempt.
Would not need.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, the bottom line with anybody that is not super cut and dried is use the screener.
Yeah, definitely. And even if it seems cut and dry and like, oh, I don't think this person's exempt. Again, the Department of Human Services is being,
expansive,
sensitive, being compassionate in the ways it's defining. Yeah, I know. We are lucky to live in a state that cares about these things for sure. And so we're truly just beating the drum of it's always worth it to check, right? It's always worth it to check.
Perfect. And I will add, I know that some of what we're going to be dealing with as we try to put this budget together is the department has been working to get us out of the tranche that has us losing as much money. And they call it an error rate, but that's kind of a misnomer. But that I know that work has been ongoing and is making some progress. So hopefully the 800 we won't need to come up with 800. We'll need to come up with a little bit less, and then we'll maybe have some money to fill in some holes with.
Maybe. But there's a lot there.
It's a long march till May.
Yeah.
And a lot can change between now and then.
Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, definitely a lot worth having that continue. I'm sure we'll have more conversations with you in your office.
Absolutely.
As more clarity comes to light on some of these things. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, with that, I want to thank everybody. Riley, do you have any follow-ups? One of the other things is I was looking at your Get Involved. I know that Protect RP and some of the other groups around have been rallying folks to be at the Care for Real and Ignatius food pantry distribution sites to provide some safety and security for the people who are there. If that's something that any of y'all are working with might have some interest in getting plugged into, we can certainly help facilitate that as well. And I'll toss it back to Riley to wrap us up.
Thank you all so much for coming. And thank you all I know some of you are planning to attend in person, and we kind of, due to the extreme weather, definitely wanted to make sure that everybody was safe and warm in your homes. So thank you for being flexible with that. Like Molly said, she's going to be sending us some links, and we will make sure to send those out to everyone as well, even those who could not attend tonight just due to the changes and things. With that, are there any final questions? And if not, you can always feel free to reach out to us, our main inbox, info@repcassidy.com. Or myself, Raleigh, you can see my name spelled here is RAULY at repcassidy.com. With that, if there are no questions.
I don't know that my email is actually working again, so it might be tomorrow that I send you the links, but
right.
It's like a Microsoft outage. It's been a nightmare today, honestly.
Oh my gosh.
Technology is not our friend, but as soon as we get those, we will send them out to everyone.
Yeah, thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much, everybody.